Hey everybody, welcome to the QuiverCast.
You go left, I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the QuiverCast. Today we have Namdev Lisman here on the show. Now, let's talk about your name.
Okay.
Straight off the bat. It's unusual, but it's a rad name.
It is cool. It took me years of growing up and therapy to enjoy it. The name comes from India. My parents have been practicing meditation and their spiritual journey through a lot of Eastern philosophy, and so that was very much a part of our lives growing up. I always say that my sister won the cool name game because she was given the name Nirvana.
Rad.
Instantly cool cred in middle school.
Yeah.
And the band pop. The name Namdev, there's a lot of story behind it. In India, there's a very famous poet. There's also a prophet. So yeah, there's a lot of wonderful stories. It's a tough name to live up to. It kind of means Nam is name and Dev is divine. So divine name.
Oh, okay.
Man, growing up, a little punk surfer kid, how do you live into that? How do you grow into it? I was born in Malibu, California. The group of kids I grew up with, their names were like Par and Tao and Bhakti. So,
Okay.
We all kind of had strange names. And it wasn't until moving to Miami Beach that I realized I didn't have a common name.
So in Malibu, what part of Malibu?
It was 3338 PCH. Yeah, I was born right there. My parents were renting a little house on this property, and they were taking care of the horses for a family. And it was the brush fires of '78 kind of burned that whole mountainside. So that house didn't live that long with us.
Okay.
I was only like a couple weeks old, and the whole story is like my dad and my older sister were down at the farmer's market, and he said that he saw like millions of butterflies flying in smoke and just went
trippy.
Got to get back. Drove through flames and came up to the house. My mom was holding me, and we were outside, and jumped in the car and went down and actually ended up in Venice Beach, where the Red Cross were helping people that were in fire. So we lived in Venice for a little while, and then Marina del Rey and Playa del Rey, and then ultimately came to Miami Beach. Yeah, my grandmother was living here.
So your parents tried to make it in Southern California. Everything was kind of going against them, it sounds like.
My mother's from Brazil, from Rio.
Okay.
And my father's from Buenos Aires, from Argentina. He left Argentina during the time it was under Pinochet, so, dictatorship. And
yeah,
he was a rock and roll guy. And so anybody that had long hair and kind of looked like that, his friends were disappearing. So he realized he had to get out. Went to the right place, to the beaches in Rio, where he met my mom, and they just made their way up to the States. My sister was born in Venezuela, up in the mountains in Los Teques, and they kept continuing north. And so I was born in Malibu, and then in Miami Beach, my younger brother was born.
I'm thinking of your parents. So one speaks Portuguese, one speaks Spanish. What was the dominant language?
It was it was a full mix, right? Like,
okay,
I learned English in school, so I spoke
like
broken, we call Portuñol. It's like Spanish, English, and Portuguese all mashed together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so how's your language now? How does that language?
It's pretty good. I mean, Miami's, it's very Latin influence, so there's a lot of Brazilians, Argentinians, Venezuelans, people from all over the world, right? A lot of my friends here growing up were from Brazil and from Venezuela and Argentina, so I could think in Spanish and in English. I can't think in Portuguese yet.
Okay.
If I'm around it enough, I could speak it, no problem.
All right, trippy. Because I know, like, in Haiti, they have that French Spanish, what is that, Creole? Or what it's called?
Yeah, there's a lot of that influence here at Miami, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a big Haitian population here as well.
Okay, so that the language how you grew up was kind of like that, where they have mixed languages.
It was more just, my mom, my dad, they didn't speak English really yet.
Okay,
Coming to
but
the
how do they
States.
communicate?
My dad is masterful in picking up languages. He's kind of one of those where like anywhere in the world he goes, and he used to travel a lot.
Okay,
He just was able to communicate.
it's super interesting.
Yeah.
Right on. So, what age is this when you go to Miami?
Moved to Miami. It was the early '80s, so I think I was like 4 or 5. So like 83, 84.
Okay, so you're still youngin'.
Yeah, absolutely youngin'. I do remember being in California. Like my first memories are of my mom holding me on the beach and seeing waves.
Unfortunately, you didn't get to surf those waves at that point.
Not at that
you
point.
Didn't grow up in those perfect Malibu points.
I mean, I really believe it made an influence because I do remember when we came to Miami and going to the beach and seeing such a flat ocean, being like, well, what's going on here? Like, where we were before, I would see waves all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much here.
So you moved to Miami. When does surfing get in your life?
Surfing came in right there in like the mid '80s. We were living in North Miami Beach. My dad bought me a little Yamaha YZ80, a little dirt bike, and I would just rip up and down the streets. And I remember coming around this one corner, and there was a house with the garage open, surfboards on a rack in the house. So I just like pulled right up to the house. I knocked on the door. This one kid opened the door, and I said, "Hey, whose surfboards are those?" And he goes, "Oh, they're mine and my brother's." I'm like, "Well, you're taking me surfing." He was like, "Well, if you beat me in a race, I'll take you." And I'm like, and he had a little go-kart, right? So my YZ80 was definitely going to beat that go-kart. I knew I was going surfing. And so I beat him in the race. His name was Bruce. His older brother, Rob, who's like still one of best friends today, was the best man at his wedding. We were super close. And yeah, he took me out. And it was like, the waves here, it's just beach bakes, really. I mean, we don't have any reefs near shore. And I remember like just so clueless, right? He was just like, all right, if you were to stand on a skateboard, which way would you stand? He's just like, jump up the air and just pretend you're on a skateboard. I landed regular foot. And he's like, all right, put the leash on the back leg and see you out there. I don't know if I was just really small or if it was just like a good day, but I remember getting just obliterated. Finally made it out. Bellied my first wave in, went out for the second one and kind of did a little wobble, and I made it up, and that was it. I was hooked.
Right on. What kind of boards were they? Do you remember? Were they like single fins?
So Rob's parents, his mother was from Peru, father was from Brazil, and they had an import-export business. So he would go down to Brazil all the time and would bring these boards back. The brand was called K&K. And I remember we used to say it was Gai Quebra, which is like they fall and they break because like the glassing was so thin on them. And but they were thrusters, like they were full like performance 80s thrusters. Yeah. And obviously not the best board to start off on, but we made it work. I mean, we used to use the hydro slides, like the knee boards, like anything.
Catch a wave.
Yeah.
Are you three like hanging out all the time? You and the two brothers?
Inseparable. And there was a few more, like once we started being able to kind of leave directly in the close area where we lived, we would go down probably like not even 2 miles away. There was a pier, the Newport Pier. And that was like a pretty cool scene back then. All the older surfers and lifeguards would always hang there. There was volleyball courts. So it was the full scene.
Beach scene.
Yeah. I don't know if it was just we were smaller, but it seemed like there was more waves back then.
More swell back.
Yeah. Summertime here is like absolutely flat unless, we get a hurricane swell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just felt like we surfed more often then than now.
Yeah, of course. Were the waves different a couple miles up at the pier? Or were they the same? You just wanted to be around the other surfers?
No, the pier was definitely better, had a better sandbar.
Yeah.
And then just a little bit further south from that, there was the Baker's Inlet. So Haulover Inlet is the main kind of entryway from the ocean into the bay, into the intercoastal. So there's a defined jetty, and they had like these two hooks. When it was northeast wind blowing, like this time of year, surf the south side, southeast, surf the north side, and that was like the heavy spot. So our parents would be like, "Don't go to Haulover." The first thing we would do is,
go ahead there
on the bus. We'd have to hide our surfboards because the Metro bus, if they saw the boards, they didn't want to stop for us. But we would hide them behind the bus stop.
All right.
And flag the bus down, and before they could say no, we already had the boards on, and
there you go.
There. Yeah.
What was the scene like? You kind of already talked about it, but like water-wise, was it heavy localism?
It was. Miami in the 80s was, they say it's the sunny place for shady people, and
I'm sure it's true.
Look, there's no shying away from like the drug history here in Miami.
Right.
So a lot of the older surfers were, in quotes, out quotes, commercial fishermen. So
yeah,
there were some serious guys. Before we would even like get in the water, they'd already be screaming at us to get out. I mean, just very unwelcoming for quite some time. There's like a defined place where you can paddle out right by the jetty. It was like this big hook. Now the sand is like it's completely filled in, but once you made it right out by the rocks, that's where like they all sat, and like you did not stick around there. If you looked at anybody, you were gonna get it. I mean, everything from slap, head dunked underwater, all types of. I guess there was no cell phones around and stuff, so
right.
Nobody was recording.
No one was...
older men beating up kids.
No, I'm sure there's no witnesses either.
Nope. Yeah, that and the beach, the parking lot was a whole other scene. Broken glass everywhere. It just wasn't like a well kept park.
Oh, okay.
You go up to like in Central Florida and stuff like. We would also drive up there quite a bit. Like the state parks there were like beautiful. Like really well kept, bathrooms and showers, and Haulover was
complete opposite.
Yeah, it was rusty. And
okay, what was the neighborhood around it like?
Just south of Haulover is an area called Bal Harbor, which is like one of the more wealthiest neighborhoods in Miami. And then north of it, you get to a place called Sunny Isles, which at the time was. It was just like 2-story little motels. Okay. And then now that whole area is just massive high rises.
Yeah.
And they call it Little Moscow. It's like very Russian influenced. Yeah, the areas were wealthy. Miami Beach has always kind of had like.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
It is.
Neglected part of it. It
was like that one spot, right? And then not a lot of the surfers lived, on the beach. Okay. So, but if you just cross over Miami Beach into like mainland Miami, it's not far. It's only like 3 miles. Very affordable to live back then around those areas and stuff.
As you're growing up surfing, you kind of got accepted in that area, I'm guessing, right?
We did. So there was like the 2 generations up from us. Mm-hmm. I would say like the history of Miami surfing really started. Well, it goes way back to even the 30s. But in like the 60s, that was like the first real kind of, I guess, predominant generation. And then so the generation, like 2 generations after that, I'm like third and fourth generation, kind of right in between. So the generation right before us, a lot of the guys were lifeguards. It also helped having an older sister. Also was,
I'm sure
part of the scene, and was pretty cool. So they, that generation of surfers kind of like let us come in and kind of
took you under their wings.
Yeah, they saw that we really loved surfing. That was it. Surfing and skating, and the summertime was building ramps, and they brought us under their wing and said, "All right, you guys, you're here all the time. you show up no matter what the conditions are.
Yeah.
And yeah, they put us in.
Awesome. So you have the couple generations ahead of you that were maybe weren't doing things exactly how they're supposed to by law. Did they ever try to recruit you, or how did you not get into that scene?
Uh,
Or you don't want to talk about it?
no, I know. I'll talk about it. It's fine. It I don't say well, we didn't get recruited in. I mean, it was all around.
Right.
Um,
That's probably true in school and everything else too.
yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, a lot of my friends, dads, went on vacation. And the inlet right there. That's where, if you ever watched the documentary Cocaine Cowboys, so there's like,
I have seen that.
yeah, it's a good one. That's like the whole area, and that inlet was like one of the main kind of entry points.
Mm,
So there was a marina just inside by Aventura called Apache Marina. That's like all of us kids that went to school in that area, we knew about it, right? I guess part of it was like, we were good kids. Definitely had a lot of friends that went down that path, and a lot of them aren't around anymore.
yeah,
So
crazy.
I saw that stuff and just went, And I was also young enough where like it wasn't,
Okay.
I wasn't big enough to really get into all that.
Okay.
That stuff
Good
came a
thing.
little later. It came a little later in life,
Okay.
Yeah.
As you're progressing in your surfing, are you guys still staying in the same area? You said you went some traveling. Did you do contests, or like how did surfing go in your life?
Right around 12 years old, there were a couple guys that moved to Miami from Brazil. They loved to compete. And so, like, all the ESA contests, they would kind of drag me along. So, yeah, I did a bunch of contests as a kid, probably till around like 13, 14, like just 2 years really, and did all right. But I don't know. It was kind of like contests were a little bit strange for me.
Okay.
It was cool. I didn't have that like strategic mindset. I just wanted to surf to kind of have fun. The one, I think, real positive thing of living in Miami, while it's probably one of the worst places to live to surf, is you do have a lot of travel available close by. So I think the first time we went to Costa Rica was like 1989. Went down there, like my friend Rob, his mom like was awesome. She took us to Costa Rica.
Wow.
We went down to Jaco that first day, and I think there was like one hotel and one little shack, and some horses running up and down the beach. And yeah, you go to Jaco today, and it is just like wild nightlife and
Yeah.
huge marina, and it was different. We had definitely got to travel quite a bit to Costa Rica. You know, there's a lot of spots to go around here.
Yeah.
All
No.
Central America. It's 2.5 hour flight. Puerto Rico is an hour flight away, hour and
Wow.
a half.
Yeah. Now, when you're going to these places as a young kid, what did you learn besides the traveling part, the surf part? What did you learn?
I think the benefit of like growing up surfing such crappy waves is that when you get to an actual wave, like a point break, you start to see like, wow, I have to slow down. I've learned how to generate speed
Yeah.
on such crappy waves. It's like, okay, really learn kind of like just speed control on waves. And I really didn't have a growth spurt until like much later in life. So I was really, really small. So I could, really kind of catch anything. And I just felt like I had to like learn how to slow down. I was always kind of like racing down these waves. And so, positioning, how to take a beating, I mean,
Yeah, because you're surfing Miami, which I'm sure on hurricane swell gets pumping, but
yeah, but even that, it's like, the paddle out is like, 30 yards, 40 yards,
yeah.
and you're in the lineup where it's all of a sudden, you go to, like I remember going to Boca Barranca, and it's like this super long point break, right? And you ride this wave, what, a third of a mile, and then
Yeah.
you turn around and you're like, oh, I got to paddle all the way back. So you kind of learn like, when to kick out, when the right time is, really kind of positioning, learning, different spots, where to sit on the reef, where to kind of, where the safe zone is.
Well, mentally, like, were you super stoked or were you intimidated?
A little of each. At first, very, very intimidated. Never kind of felt a powerful ocean like that. And the intimidation would be kind of washed out by like one good ride.
Yeah.
You know, one good ride would just kind of be like, all right, I can do this. You know, one heavy wipeout that I survived would be like, okay, that's all right. If I live through that,
You
I
can do
can
it
do
again.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember like there was once we went to Nosara, and it was pretty good size. And I remember it was just really strong offshore, and I'm scratching into a wave, and I feel like I couldn't see anything, and I just felt my nose kind of start going down. I'm like, all right, I got this. And I popped up, and I just was teetering right on the lip and just went right over the falls. And it was one of those moments where I'm like on the way down, just going, this is really going to suck. And then the sandbar is so packed there. I remember just getting like face planted and the wave just pushing me, you know, face down into the sand so strong. I was already, you know, saying my goodbyes to my family. And right when it was like at the point where I had to take a breath, I don't know, I just like shot up. And when I did breathe, I mean, I got foam in the mouth but that was fine. Like
Yeah.
that gave me like all right,
Confidence.
yeah, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of like more awareness of what I should do and what I shouldn't do.
And your buddies that are with you, what are they feeling? The same as you, or
So they were all a little bit older.
okay.
So, you know, a little bit stronger, bigger. I think they all surfed a little bit better. They were probably like a year or two, you know, surfing longer than I was.
Experience.
But they looked out for me too. So I always felt like really well kind of kept.
Awesome. You're in Miami for a while. You're just surfing your brains out. What else goes on in your life? What happens after that?
I think like the biggest turning point was really I was 17 years old, really living a good life. Had a girlfriend of, you know, several years. She passes away in a car accident,
Oh, brutal.
and I was just, yeah, like no 17-year-old should ever emotionally have to go through something like that. And I had went to the Paskowitz Surf Camp when I was, I don't know, I was probably like 12, 12 or 13.
Okay.
And I kept in touch with Izzy Paskowitz. The only thing I knew what to do at that moment, I couldn't be in Miami, so I got in my car and I just drove to San Clemente. I remembered where he lived. I think I called my parents from when I was in Texas. Like they
They
didn't
had
know
no
I
clue.
left. No.
Wow.
And I pulled up to Izzy's house and kind of knocked on the door and said, you know, what happened? And I was like, you know, is it cool if, you know, I spent some time with you guys at the camp? I had such a great time here as a camper. And yeah, he just welcomed me in, like didn't even question it. It was just like, yeah, of course.
Wow.
You know,
That's cool.
and that was when the camp was in the campground was San Mateo campgrounds right there by Camp Pendleton. You know, that's where we all lived in tents. And then Sano was the spot where we would set up the camp every day. You know, I kind of had two things in mind, like, okay, I'll go to California. Let's see if I could make surfing a career. And it was quick, you know, a quick dose of reality of like, wow, the level of surfing out there was just so much more advanced from where I was at. Yeah, just like teaching surfing at the camp was like the next best thing. I mean, I was surrounded by, you know, legends of surfing. You know, the Paskowitz family alone, just they
Right.
have such a deep rooted history. And I had never really cared much for longboarding. I was still kind of in that like punk mindset, you
Shortboard.
know,
Yeah.
shortboards, and yet Dorian Paskowitz showed a grace in longboarding that, you know, all of his kids really, really had. And so, you know, through time there, like when we weren't out with the kids teaching surfing, they would, you know, there's all these longboards, and it would just be like, go out there. And then there was another guy, Terry Sims, who was like the head instructor. Him and I just bonded immediately as well. We call each other soul brothers. I mean, he's a lot older than I am,
Yeah.
but just the ultimate stoke broker. He used to say he used to be a broke surfer. Now he's a stoke broker. You know, he came down from, I think he was in Santa Cruz before coming down to the Paskowitz camp. He surfed on a longboard, but we would go to lowers and he would like blast airs on a longboard. And I was like, hold up. I'm like, that's pretty rad. So they had a really big influence on me on just looking at longboarding, kind of what you can do on a longboard as opposed to what, I saw as a kid, in Endless Summer, right? Like just two completely different things. And Sano also just, had so many amazing longboarders there. I mean, Joel Tudor would come by and I just remember, still till today, just jaw dropped what that guy does. And he's riding everything. Yeah, his longboarding skill was just superb.
So you go to basically Sano from Miami, completely different kind of waves. Sano's probably more consistent, but also a slower wave, probably. Than
Mushy.
The beach breaks of
mushy,
Miami.
Slow.
You can't ride a shortboard there, almost never. Once in a while.
Unless you get like a real good south swell. The year, it was 97, 98. It was a really good El Nino summer. Mm-hmm. And I remember like there was one day where, there was just lefts peeling all the way in. And there was guys shortboarding out there.
But
unlike
generally,
Donovan Frankenreiter would come down with these kind of like strange fishes and just put on a clinic there.
Oh, I bet.
I think even now you see it with like all the kind of the reintroduction of the fish. Mm-hmm. And so many guys are shaping them now that they're pushing them. I haven't rode a shortboard in quite some time, but I just ordered one of those, the Lost Pisces.
Okay.
I'm watching what these guys are doing and I'm like, well, if I get one with enough liters, maybe I could make it work.
So then your thoughts on longboarding, it went from just like, to the nose. Now you're seeing them surfing like a shortboard.
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts of that?
Well, it was just like, it was different, right? Okay. Like it was kind of like counterculture to the counterculture of what surfing is. I kind of like latched onto it. And there was like a certain grace that I saw in longboarding that I just really kind of fell in love with. Terry and we would go on the full moon and surf lowers at nighttime.
Wow. Okay.
So the full moon would kind of rise and it would light up the left, and then the power plant would light up the right. And I really wouldn't want to be sitting out there on a shortboard at nighttime. It was kind of easier also to be on a longboard.
Yeah, for sure.
It just kind of like it became like it was really easy to catch waves, and I didn't have to try to do so much. It was like it was okay just to do like a really beautiful cutback, or just walk up to the nose and kind of defy the laws of physics of like, if I'm standing on the nose, physics is telling me that I should nosedive, but yet somehow because of the forward trajectory and everything, like I'm not, and that just it just really interested me.
On a side note, a lot of longboarder purists are going backwards than they did in the 90s. As in, they don't want to see the bottom turn and hit the lip on the longboard.
I get it.
Yeah, the 3-fin longboard's kind of out nowadays.
Yeah.
Where it was big in the 90s.
I get it. And honestly, like here, at least in like, South Florida, like
that's different.
We don't have point breaks, right? So it's like, so even like when I did come back to Miami and I was like longboarding only, and people were just like, what the hell are you doing on a longboard, kid? But then they would see like, oh shit, he's kind of throwing turns around. Like, that's kind of cool. I could understand why the purists want to kind of see that, the art form's still there and keep it. I think it's really important to keep tradition and to keep the kind of foundations of things alive.
But I like the best of both worlds, and that's kind of what you're attracted to, it sounds like.
Yeah, I like to explore.
There you go. I like that.
Right now, I've been riding this like 7.6, the Ova, which is just like the perfect in between. It's not really, you can't really nose ride it, but
more like a mid-length kind of thing.
It is a mid-length, and it's, man, especially for here, right? Like if I'm surfing, real waves, then I'm going to lean towards some different equipment. I think it's all beautiful. Like, however the more traditional longboarding, I think, has its beauty and grace to it. And then it's also kind of cool to see someone launch in air with a 9.0. I mean,
It's super cool. You're not seeing it anymore. That was kind of my point of bringing it up. Like, that way of surfing is kind of pushed out, it seems like. Even in San Onofre and stuff. I mean, I'll go there every so often, and it's not like it was in the 90s how they were surfing.
Yeah, I haven't been back there, unfortunately, in quite a while.
No, the crowd's crazy. You don't want to go back.
Well,
it's so crowded.
But that's everywhere, right? I mean,
that's true. All right.
Everywhere.
But really bad there.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's still there's so much like history to that, that stretch of beach.
All right. Sorry to pull you away. So you're talking about, just surfing the hula. Learning longboarding was okay, I think is what you're trying to say.
You kind of are what your surroundings are going to be, right? So
100%.
I was surrounded by all these like really, really, first of all the Paskowitz brothers.
Rip, right?
Ripped.
Yeah.
Like ripped. Each one of them had their own kind of style. And so being able to kind of be around that, and then, guys like David Nueva would come around, and it's just like that beach was just, John Peck would be there and pulling crusty joints out of his beard and just like, what is this? It was such a cool scene. Yeah, I was enamored with it. I was just like, wow, these are all like legends of surfing, and what a cool opportunity to be right at the center of it right here. It was a real special time in my life, and I needed it. Like it was like exactly what I needed to change a little bit out of like the selfish part of surfing to helping others learn.
I get that.
The Paskowitz camp was unique. Like,
it's a unique family, I think.
Yeah.
Non-traditional.
Definitely non-traditional. I mean, I didn't go to like other surf camps and stuff. Now there's, a camp at every beach, but
yeah.
They really just like you became part of their family for the week, and it was really awesome just to be a part of that.
How long did you work there for?
I worked there for 3 summers.
Okay.
And then at the end of the summer, we would drive down to Cabo and do some camps down in Cabo. So those are more kind of like for adults, and they were like a private camp. The last summer that I was working there, well, when I say working there, there was no pay. It was living. Volunteer, but they took care of you. You were one of them. The last summer I started kind of playing around with video, so I kind of brought my my first Panasonic EZ1. It was the first 3-chip digital kind of mini DV cam that came out with a water housing, and started filming and playing around also with making some videos too. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. At that time too, there was like different surf brands would come in and like sponsor a week. And so like, Roxy came in. Roxy did like, they had this really cool bus that they painted up. And so I started meeting some people, mainly from Quicksilver. And, they came down. When I moved back to Miami, I started working for Quicksilver down here when they opened up one of the board riders.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was a cool kind of transition to at least come back to Miami and still be connected to
surf
world. Yeah.
What did you learn from the Paskowitz family not to do with surfing? They seem like they changed your attitude towards life.
They did. They showed me what family means.
Okay.
While families can be very close, it can also be very tough. Like Dorian taught me a tough love in a way that was like I had never witnessed anything like that. I remember I was like smoking cigs behind the bathroom, and he came around the corner and caught me smoking a cigarette. And he cracked me in the face, and it was just like, put that cigarette out. He's like,
no way,
kid. But I know he did it out of love, right? He was just like,
okay,
hey, you want to be here. I mean, we're about being healthy, and that's not going to do it for you. So, yeah, the whole family, it's such a unique group. My family back here in Miami, like, we're all very close and everything, but we didn't grow up in an RV together. right?
Yeah.
Like when you're that close, like you know the
Literally.
insides and outs of everyone.
Literally.
There was never, you didn't hold anything back. You said what you thought. You said what you felt. It was something I've adopted, in my life till today, right? It's like, if I can't express myself to the people I care about the most, then like, hmm, what's this relationship about?
Okay. Fair.
So, yeah.
Was there any point where it was shocking or thought, oh, what did I get myself into?
I questioned myself quite a few times. I mean,
Okay, that's
living in a two-man tent, for months can get frustrating at times. It's like,
It's a
but
little
it
hot
also
back there too. The cemetery
does. It
campground.
gets hot, but it also, they taught me like just about being simple, not needing like all the luxuries in life to be
Okay.
happy. To really kind of appreciate just what it is you have and what's surrounding you, and those are kind of core principles. And it's really like the bond that they all shared was infectious. Like everyone wanted to be a part of that crew, you know. Yeah.
And what were your parents saying personally? Or did you tell them what was going on?
Yeah,
Honestly?
no, not honestly. They knew I was being well cared for. I had a lot of people looking out for me always. We were mischievous. Those were like the last few years that the camp was at San O and in San Mateo. I think the Paskowitz as a family were going through some changes as well in terms of like who's going to run the camp. And, there was some internal stuff there
Okay.
that, in the documentary Surfwise, they kind of talk all about it.
Yeah.
So I got to witness some of that, but, you know, all in all, they're just how they welcomed me in. And like,
Mm.
for me, that was bizarre. Like, I just showed up at your doorstep. Like, you
Yeah.
really didn't know me until today. Like, Izzy and I, we're still close. He started the Surfers Healing Foundation.
Yeah.
When he wanted to do a camp in Miami, he called me up and asked me to participate. And, I didn't think twice. Just like, yeah, whatever you need, and I'll always do that for him and the family. I mean, it's back then, autism there wasn't a diagnosis. And
Oh,
Isaiah,
okay.
his son, like he was like 3, 4 years old playing on the beach, and you saw that they were going through some stuff,
Yeah.
and he was life challenges there, so they all stuck together, and that's what's important.
Did you feel like you had two separate families? You had one in Florida, then you had this California family, kind of a world family, actually.
Yeah, that's something that you get with surfing and traveling around. As you go new places and you meet people, and when you can share that bond of surfing together,
Mm-hmm.
that's a special thing. I always feel like I have a West Coast family. I did have some family also down in Del Mar. Like in the winter, I would go stay with them. And then I had some buddies from Miami that moved to La Jolla when I didn't want to be with my aunt.
Okay.
I lived with them and had a great time.
Did your siblings surf? Your biological siblings?
No.
No, they didn't surf. Okay.
So, well, I mean, my sister has surfed, but they didn't have like
Yeah.
the bug like me. And my younger brother, he's 6 years younger than I. I mean,
Oh, wow.
he played ice hockey,
Yeah.
like
Different
in
generation. Yeah.
Miami. It's
Yeah.
just also kind of bizarre, but
That's cool.
I wanted to
Hockey's
play
big
ice hockey.
everywhere.
Yeah, I wanted to play at one point, but my parents were like, no, it's too dangerous. And then, he comes around.
That's right. 6 years
And
later,
yeah,
everything
that's
changed.
it. He's goalie.
There right on. Okay, so what happens when it ends with the Packowitz or you move on?
So Terry still till today, I mean, he does surf tours and coaches, and he called me up, and he was running some camps in Mexico in Punta Mita, like just
Mm-hmm.
north of Puerto Vallarta. I went out there. I lived with him for a bit, taught surfing with a couple families that had property on the Four Seasons there.
Mm.
And then, for the Four Seasons also had a little surf program. So we teach surfing there. And just my older sister had her first son. I just like, I wanted to be there for him. I mean, my uncle, like my dad's brother, He passed when I was pretty young. I remember him. So I missed out on having that cool uncle. I wanted to come back. Well, I really just came back to visit, but I ended up staying. And that's when the whole like reconnection with the guys from Quicksilver, and they were opening up the Board Riders Club here. So it all kind of worked out. Got to jump on that show for a while.
At this point in your life, you're early, like 20s at this point.
Yeah.
We're talking about.
Yep.
Did you have a plan, or were you just kind of blowing with the wind?
Man, I had no plan. I
great.
know I liked to surf. I liked video production, so I was getting like freelance gigs down here. At the time in mid '90s, late '90s, production was booming. I mean, I can get any job on any production that was coming here, and it was awesome. It was just like it paid really well. I could work 4 gigs a month and make enough for rent, and living right down in South Beach and like in Party Central, and it was the place to be at that time, at least.
What would have Doc thought of you partying at the South Beach?
Oh, he probably would have hated it.
I had to ask that.
Yeah, he would not approve.
Okay.
But it's kind of like one of those things that like I had to go through all that and find those challenges, and I mean I had great times too.
I'm
Then
sure.
there's the other side of like the Miami Beach nightlife, and
Is
the
it what the
club.
movie show, the TV shows?
I mean, yes and no. It is like there's all the big nightclubs, and I worked in a few of those, and it's just that nightlife, vampire, up all night, sleep all day. After a while, it takes a toll.
And surfing kind of gets forgotten, or does it stay in your life?
Surfing kind of got forgotten for a bit there. It took some hard knocks and to finally kind of like work out of that. Found a career just through production. Started a software company, and that ended up 25 years till we were just able to sell that company. Things really started to evolve once I started finding a direction of like, oh, this is like cool work.
Literally shooting video, or what were you doing?
In the beginning, yeah, I worked for a company. It was called Digital DreamWorks, and they would do commercials, so production and post production. My boss at the time was an animal. I mean, we do like 3 commercials in a weekend. It was like no sleep. It would be Pepsi AC in the morning, Toyota at night, and then Advil the next day, and then go back to the studio and ingest all that content. And he had some really good editors there, so I kind of like started seeing what it took to make all these commercials and music videos, and my life kind of went on a whole other track for a while until Izzy really came back and said, hey, we want to do Surfers Healing. That was pivotal in bringing me back into surfing and kind of getting reconnected with what really made me happy.
When you say surfing kind of took a back seat, was it like full gone for years, or was it like you get in the water once in a while?
No, I mean, I wasn't taking like as many trips and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like definitely like, I mean, I would surf here when there was waves, but it's so infrequent, right? Like we don't, it's consistently inconsistent. So,
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So no, I would.
But it's warm and it's nice. It's inviting.
Now it's inviting. Very different. You could paddle out anywhere here now. Nobody's going to say anything to you.
Really. Okay, that's true too.
Like all like the rough times kind of left. There was a defining moment. 2 of like the main surf shops here. Island Water Sports, North Miami Beach has been around.
Yeah, I've heard of him for sure.
Scott Payne is like, he was also really instrumental in bringing the community together. And then there was First Surf Shop down, right smack on First Street. When that shop closed, one of the owners, Chris De La Iglesia, passed away. It was only like 5 years ago. I feel like that was a huge blow to the surf community down here. Yeah, he was like part of my generation. We were all really close. I mean, he was a roommate for years. After that shop closed, I feel like South Beach doesn't have like the core surf community like it did have.
Okay.
They were holding it together. And
So
that's
you're
no
saying
longer.
there's no surf culture kind of in your area?
Not really. I
Yeah,
mean, there's
that's sad.
people who surf, and
Yeah, of course.
there's, some guys that really surf well. There are some rippers out there for
I'm
sure.
sure.
But that place where everybody would go and hang and be like the center point for us all to get
Mm-hmm.
together,
Mm-hmm.
once first closed down, that was just kind of like, it was gone.
Sad. It's a different world now.
There is.
What are you riding today?
Most of the time I'm riding that 7.6, the
Okay.
OVA, the mid length. I have a 10.2 Christensen that
Oh, wow.
is, yeah, it's beautiful. I call it the general because when I'm out there on that thing, like, you got to get out of the general's way.
That's right.
Uh, and then I just ordered this Lost Pisces, which I can't wait for it to go. I've almost 40 years of surfing. I've never had a custom board. This is the first custom board I've
Really interesting.
Oh,
Tricky.
well, it's like all my friends always had shops, right? So
Yeah.
I would just
Just
go there and
find the right one.
find the right, or they
Yeah.
would order something like, "Hey, this one would be good for you."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
finally just like ordered one, and yeah, looking to see what happens with that board. The second I get it, I'm going to Puerto Rico, and we're gonna go,
Oh, nice.
find some good waves over there and see what it's like getting on something. It's a six. I ordered a 6.0. So we'll see. I haven't stood that narrow. I'm pretty tall, too, so I'm like almost 6'3".
Oh, okay.
So the longer boards for me, my stance is pretty wide, so I
Yeah.
feel
So
really
you really
comfortable.
went down on a 6 foot. That's.
Yeah, I know it might be weird.
Do you think it's gonna be a struggle? You're in
Maybe.
shape. First off, you're in shape. Yeah.
I'm definitely in shape. I mean, I train jujitsu like 4 times a week. I've been
Yeah.
training for years now. So yeah, like when my knees are feeling good,
Mm-hmm.
like I can do some turns.
But I will say, no, for sure, because I went deep into your Instagram today,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that long ago. Within the last 10 years, you've been riding a shortboard.
So if it's like shoulder high,
Mm-hmm.
I'll get on a shortboard.
Okay.
But like anything, below shoulder high, I'll just get on that mid length because I can just catch more waves and I could still turn them. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not keep the wave count up?
100%. So it's kind of my point too. Well, let me ask you a couple questions there.
Sure.
First off, do you claim localism? Like, I've been surfing here forever, so get out of my way when you're on a longboard and they're on a shortboard? How does that work? Do you get the local respect?
I just had an incident. So at Hollover, there's like all of us have been surfing there for a long time. Like we sit behind the rock, so like we kind of take off behind the jetty, and you
Okay.
could kind of ride out through.
Yeah.
And since I'm on a longer board, I could sit further out. And I did have an incident where I dropped in. I saw there was a younger kid on the inside, and he kind of came behind me, and I'm not going to kick out for something like that. And yeah, he kind of on the beach. He threatened me, and which I just kind of was like, I'm twice his age, and I train at Fight Sports
Right.
in Miami Beach. Right? Like, man, I told the kid, like, with all due respect, like, if you're gonna threaten me with violence, like, it's not gonna
That's
end
not
well
smart.
for you, you
Yeah.
know. And two, like, I won't inflict anything like that. I would only defend myself, and
Yeah.
I never felt threatened. But I don't claim localism. I would rather everyone have a good time. And
Yeah.
if it's like we don't have waves of consequence here, right? So like even if somebody drops in and it's like waist high on me, like I don't really care. Like that's fine. Like unless it's like blatant or something malicious.
Or keep over and over.
Yeah. And there's a few people that we try to keep some order, but
There has to be.
can't. I wish there was more of it, but
I guess the reason I'm asking, maybe I said it wrong or harsher than I was meaning to say, but I'm trying to ask, is there respect for the older guy that's been there for a long time compared to the 16-year-old or however old that kid was that thinks he's hot shit? And he might be hot shit. He might rip. I don't know.
No, he didn't. I think there's a few guys that have been around here a long time, longer than me, and like my generation, that I think the younger kids that want to really progress in their surfing, they do respect them. And those guys are always catching the waves anyway. Yeah, there's some respect, but there's always somebody that, is going to paddle out that just doesn't know. And that's the
Yeah.
reality. It's like they don't know. I try to do the non-aggressive approach of like if I see, somebody paddling with their legs wide open and they're struggling, just like, hey bud, close your legs. Here, come over here. I'll give them a little push, and I'll try to encourage, because the less dangerous people are out there, the better off we all are.
Yes.
But sometimes it's just like there's only like a 20-yard takeoff spot at Hollow, really, and you get some wild tangle ups there.
I bet. So you do jiu-jitsu. How'd you get into that? Is it your Brazilian roots?
Well, it is there.
That was kind of sarcastic.
I was terrified, like I never liked confrontation of that type of sort. It was also like a period of time where I ran out of all my tokens at the arcade of partying. So I had to find a way to be healthy. So like I stopped drinking, stopped doing, anything that was really going to kind of impede my judgment. So I just got, 10 years of sobriety.
Oh, cool.
And, thanks. So jiu-jitsu kind of came in like my mid 30s, and it was something like, okay, I'm terrified of somebody being like in my face or strangling me. So I'm going to do this. And one of my best friends is a black belt. So he, we kind of like put mats at his house, and he started introducing me to it. And then like I got hooked pretty quick, because it's like jiu-jitsu, if you don't mind sucking at something for a long time, then, and it's kind of like surfing as well. Like, you have to go through that process, and it's years, it's not like you're not going to pick it up in 1 year or 2 years. So jiu-jitsu, it allowed me to learn discipline, learn humility, and then also kind of like balance and play with the ego a bit, right? Because like sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail, and you have to be able to be okay with either one. Miami's like a hotbed for jiu-jitsu. I mean, some of the best academies in the world, have places here. And yeah, I was really fortunate to kind of like land in with like a really solid academy that have just killers, like absolute killers there, who at face value, they look terrifying, but they're actually really nice, And
I think fighters in general, whatever, it could be a boxer, it could be Muay Thai, whatever, all the different ones.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of ego. They know what they can do.
Yeah. There is a lot of ego. But it is that. It's like they know what they can do. I remember my best friend Walter, who was a black belt, was teaching an all black belts class down here, and he invited me just to go watch. And like I went there. This is like I only trained like maybe like a month or two. I'm watching these guys, and at the end of class, like each one of them came over and like introduced himself to me and like shook my hand. And after I go to my buddy Walter, I said, "Hey man, they all kind of gave me like kind of like wimpy, kind of girly handshakes, And it was kind of always like, dude, you know what they could do with one hand on you? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you kind of learn real quick. Like, I don't know if you've ever interviewed Joel Tudor, but I mean, talk about an amazing practitioner of jiu-jitsu and, an amazing surfer. He's really, I feel like, brought those two worlds together kind of better than anybody. He'll let you know what it's about.
Are you friends with Joel?
Back at the Paskowitz, he would come by the camp, and then he was just down here. He did a seminar, Mario Sperry's academy, and I went by. I said hello. I want to make it back out to Del Mar. He's got an academy there, Surf Fight, which looks like the funnest academy in the world. Like these guys are just killing each other, but all smiling.
Yeah.
He was an idol of mine as a kid, and just like to see that he's still doing both practices is like, gives me hope. I mean, I'm 46. I don't think he's that much older than me, but yeah, we can do this, till we're old, really old.
That's good. It'll keep you young.
It does. I mean, yeah, we stop moving and that's it. We're done.
What about his son? You see any of his son surfing? His son charges.
All the, and it's crazy because like the older son had the same style, stand the same. They got that like that real good posture,
Yeah.
kind of in the barrel.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Joel charges, but I think his son might be better than him, to be honest with you. I'm just saying. Well, maybe it's just a younger guy. He's good. He's a good surfer.
I mean,
When
you've proven yourself and you've put yourself in those environments, right? Like, once again, you're a product of your environment, right? So it's like,
right.
when you're there, I mean, I've gone to Hawaii a few times now, and another like huge mentor of mine in life and business and everything, this guy Dewey Doan, he was a Quicksilver exec. After he left Quicksilver, he opened up a jiu-jitsu brand. It's called Kakoa Collective, and it's like a really cool concept. It's like a conscious company. It's really about building community, and yes,
Cool.
They're a nonprofit, but he put me up in right on the North Shore, and was just like, you come here. I had a health scare that I had to go through, and
okay.
a bunch of treatments. And when I completed all the treatments, he just said, "Hey, come here and heal." I mean, open the doors, put me in this house right on the North Shore.
Nice.
As a kid, all I ever wanted to do was surf sunset. Seeing those images, like Poncho and sunset, was like, forget it. That's what I want to do. And so Dewey gave me that opportunity. The first week was terror.
Okay.
The second week was just like, okay, creep a little bit in. And that was just a short period of time. But so when you're there consistent, right, like, you're going to progress. Consistency is everything with whatever it is we do. For jiu-jitsu, for surfing, like, that's been like the biggest lessons for me. You got to get the time. You got to put the time in. That's the only way.
In that short period in Sunset, did you get a good one or a couple good ones?
I did. Yeah.
Nice.
Early morning before like everyone paddled out, so probably not the best conditions.
Yeah.
But definitely bigger than anything I had ever surfed before. Actually, I got some boards from Poncho when I got to go out there. He's business partners with a good friend of ours from Miami. So he just like opened his garage, and I was like, man, pick two.
Nice.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, that trip, I got some, and also got to train jiu-jitsu up there at the Boar's Nest, and that's my favorite place on earth.
So tell us about this. It wasn't a podcast, but you did was it a nightlight, in a bar? There's True Story.
True story. That came out of COVID. A friend of mine, a musician down here, kind of started this night. It was the Storytellers Extravaganza. And it was basically like this concept where storytellers would come. There would be like 4 storytellers, and the story had to be true, and it had to be about you. And you'd have about 10 to 12 minutes to just get up on stage and tell a story. So he ended up getting like this production company from New York ended up like booking him, and they did like this 6-month long performance, one-man show out of it. So when that ended, I asked him like, "Hey, can I continue this?" And he was like, "Sure thing, just rebrand it." So we started True Story, and it was a weekly Wednesday nights, and it would just get all walks of life. And it was unfiltered. I never knew what the story was going to be. You just kind of let me know that you want to tell a story, and you would go up. And it was wild. I mean, you get stories about like guys who went to prison. Like this one guy went to prison. He killed his girlfriend and like had to come to terms with it in solitary confinement. I mean, everyone's crying in that place listening to this guy's story. And then like the next guy was talking about like, some crazy sex stuff in Bangkok. It was just, you never knew what you were going to get. We kind of, when I started working again and getting, it was hard. I mean, I also have, wife, 2 kids. So being out on a Wednesday night until 11 o'clock doesn't really fall into my schedule anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And then tell us about your family. You seem like you're super important to you.
Yeah, my wife Erica. We have 2 daughters.
Yeah.
Nava she just turned 15 on the 21st, and then our younger daughter Varuna. They've joined the strange name gang.
They have nice names though. They sound like nice female names.
Yeah. Well, Nava, really kind of came from Nava Paskowitz. That name. That's the first time I ever heard it, and she was so kind when I went there that when our daughter was going to be born, it was kind of like I understood the meaning behind it and like the beauty of it. So I was, my wife allowed me to name her Nava. Varuna is like the goddess to the sea.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of give them that uniqueness. And I told them, it might be hard at times having a strange name, but trust me, later on in life, you'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
And they're awesome. Like, really wanted them to surf. My plan kind of backfired and like took them to like Tavarua, took them to Hawaii, took them to like all these like premier surf destinations.
Yeah.
And they'll like look at the waves here in Miami, like, I'm not going out in that,
Yeah, I can see that.
But they're very athletic though. They both trained jiu-jitsu for years and then kind of went off into doing like Cirque du Soleil, like acrobatic stuff. And
oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
They scare me when they go up there. They're hanging like 20 feet in the air, upside down, and just on straps, and it's wild.
Wow. So, but they'll get caught, right?
No net, no pad on the floor.
Holy shit! I don't know. Yeah, my kid.
I know. Well, you build up to that, right?
I guess. Yeah. I'll take your word for it.
But they love it, and they're both super creative and artistic and athletic. So I think my wife is really the brains behind this operation. Brilliant woman, and I'm kind of like the knucklehead.
And your wife doesn't surf either?
No, I've taken her a bunch of times.
Yeah, for
she
sure.
enjoys it, but also it's kind of like in those premier destinations, she'll go out there and spend the whole day in the water. But here, you have to be like so
committed
and like delusional and like to really live in Miami and surf. Like when you walk up to the beach here, 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be, thigh to waist high, wind chop. 2 hours of like the tide switch is when you could actually maybe catch something. And so, it takes a strange human here to.
How do you find the time? Do you have to actually put that time aside, or is it just kind of open up?
Well, we have a shared calendar. The family calendar, that gets kind of looked at. A lot of like kind of just looking at the forecast and seeing what the tides are going to do. And if I could fit it in, I'll get it in. My wife also knows that like without jiu-jitsu and without surfing in my life, like I'm a train wreck.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So she's equally supportive and you make it work. And some months I can get more time in. The jiu-jitsu is easy because it's, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, 6:30 in the morning. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's an easy one. Surfing is kind of tough. And it's either like, book a ticket and just say, hey, we're going, the boys are going to Puerto Rico for the weekend.
Nice.
Cool, right? Yeah. and deal with the repercussions. But most of the time, they all know. I mean, we're all supportive on like all of our creative hobbies and things that we want to achieve in life. I think that was another big kind of lesson that I learned from my parents. It was just like we grew up free range, right? Like just said go. I was 14 years old and I was out like
yeah, all day, all night, probably
all night. Come back the next day. I slept in my friend's house, no problem. Like they had a very long, non-existent leash with us, and I don't know if you could do that today. I wouldn't. But, but we'll keep going.
Different place.
Yeah,
it'll probably go backwards in the next couple generations. I hope. We'll see.
I hope so too. We'll see, right? I mean, the more that we all kind of like create the worlds that we want to be in. I mean, as communities kind of start looking local and start seeing, how they could really help the local community out, we could bring that back. I'm sure we can. Yeah,
for sure. All right. Well, Dev, thank you so much for coming on the QuiverCast. It was super fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was stoked. It was great stories. Man. All right, everybody. This is Mike and Dev, and we're out of here.
You go left, I I go right. Man, this wave is out of sight. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends. Ride this wave to the shore. Paddle out, I'm gonna catch 10 more. Going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends. I don't care if it's wrong or right. I'm gonna do it all day, I'm gonna do it all night. I'm going surfing, going surfing, going surfing with friends. On my way, it's a beautiful day. I'm going surfing, I'm going surfing, going surfing with friends.